They found over 2,000 love letters in his house, all of them addressed to the same woman, all of them sealed, unsent, and dated week by week across 43 years. The mailman had never delivered them. She had never read a single word, because she was never supposed to see them. And no one, not the neighbors, not the friends, not even the family, ever knew why he kept writing her long after she was gone. Some say she left him at the altar. Others whisper he drove her away. But if you ask him, if you sit across from that old man and watch the way his hand trembles when he holds the last letter he ever wrote her, he'll tell you, she didn't leave. She vanished. 1 week before the wedding, no call, no note, no trace. And every week since, he's written her as if she were still out there, reading his words, as if the truth would find its way back through the ink. He never mailed them, not one, because he believed if he waited long enough, she'd return. But the truth? The truth was darker than anyone could imagine. And it started to surface the night a nurse cracked open a locked trunk in a hospital no one talks about anymore. The nurse almost didn't open the trunk. It was old, dusty, hidden behind a row of broken wheelchairs in a back hallway of the long-term ward, the part of the hospital where people go when the world forgets them. The lock had rusted shut. The nameplate was scratched to hell, unreadable. But something made her stop. Something made her look twice. Inside were blankets, a faded Bible, and under that, letters. Hundreds of them, tied with string, carefully preserved like relics. And each one started the same way. My darling Claire. The nurse had never heard of a Claire on the floor. The patients here didn't get visitors. Most had no names anymore, just numbers, meds, charts. But one woman, had been here longer than any record showed. They called her Room 7. Didn't speak, didn't smile, just sat by the window every day, staring out like she was waiting for something that never came. No family ever visited her. No one claimed her. The files were a mess. Signatures blacked out, diagnoses vague. But when the nurse brought in the bundle of letters and set them on the table, Room 7 moved for the first time in months. Her hand reached out, trembling, and she whispered one word, James. That was the man who wrote them. And that was the moment the truth began to claw its way back to the surface, one letter at a time. They met in 1973, under a red umbrella in the middle of a thunderstorm. He offered her his coat. She offered him a smile that never left his memory. Claire had a laugh that made strangers turn. James was quieter, a mechanic's apprentice with oil under his fingernails and dreams too big for his pockets. But when they were together, the world made sense. They got engaged within 6 months. Everyone said it was too fast, too young, too reckless. Everyone, except her, until the day her father found out who James really was. A self-made millionaire, ruthless and cold-blooded beneath a charming grin, Claire's father had plans for her, the kind of plans that didn't involve a grease-stained boy from the wrong side of town. He smiled through his teeth at James at dinner, paid for their honeymoon in advance, offered to buy them a house. And the night after he shook James's hand and said, "Welcome to the family," Claire disappeared. No note, no call, just silence. James didn't sleep for 3 days. He searched hospitals, called friends, begged police for help, but with no crime, no body, no sign of struggle, no one listened. Except one person, Claire's mother. She came to James a week later, crying, shaking, and with 5 words that would haunt him forever. He did something to her. James never saw her mother again after that night. She showed up just after sunset, eyes red, makeup smeared, looking like someone who just witnessed something she couldn't speak out loud. She didn't come inside. She didn't sit. She just stood on the porch with shaking hands and whispered, "He did something to her, but he'll bury me if I say more." Then she slipped him a photograph, one he'd never seen before. Claire, sitting in a garden, wearing a pale blue dress, but something about her eyes was off, empty. And behind her, blurred in the distance, was the silhouette of a building James didn't recognize. Then she was gone. James tried to show the police the photo. They brushed it off. Said it was old. Said Claire probably left on her own. Women change their minds. One officer shrugged. But James couldn't let go. He stopped going to work, stopped shaving. He started writing letters, one every Sunday, not because he thought she'd read them, but because it was the only thing keeping him from losing his mind. And deep down, he believed if he kept writing, he'd feel it if she was gone. But she wasn't. He could feel it, like a pulse in the air. And he was right, because 200 miles away, behind locked doors and padded walls, Claire was alive. But not herself. Not yet. Room 7 had no name on the chart. Just numbers, dosages, a diagnosis that didn't make sense. Delusional fixation, dissociative fugue, persistent hallucinations. She wasn't violent. She didn't scream. She didn't speak for years. But every morning, she sat by the window and waited, eyes locked on the gate outside like someone had promised they'd come back and never did. The nurses thought she was just another lost mind, forgotten, filed away. Until the new one, Megan, opened that trunk. She brought one letter in at a time, read them aloud, slowly, every Sunday. And every week, Claire came further back. First a tear, then a smile. Then one morning, she whispered something that stopped Megan cold. "He doesn't know I'm still here." For decades, her mind had been smothered under pills and silence, her memories fogged, her name buried. But James's words, the rhythm of them, the way he never stopped writing, started to shake something loose. The fog began to lift. And she remembered the night her father took her hand and said, "You'll thank me one day." Then the needle. Then the walls. And the lie that would keep her hidden for a lifetime. But now she was waking up. And the man who put her there? He was running out of places to hide. James had stopped believing in miracles. The world had moved on without him. Birthdays, funerals, Christmases spent alone at that same old kitchen table, writing to a ghost. The shoebox under the bed had become a vault of heartbreak. He never married, never left town, just existed quietly like a man living in the shadow of something unfinished. Then, on a rainy Thursday morning, the phone rang. He almost didn't answer. The voice on the other end was young, nervous. A nurse named Megan. She said she wasn't supposed to call, said she found something she shouldn't have, and someone who might belong to him. He dropped the phone. 3 hours later, he stood outside the hospital, hands trembling, letter clutched in his coat pocket, the same coat he wore the day he met her. Megan met him in the lobby. She looked scared, kept glancing over her shoulder like someone was watching. She whispered fast, about room 7, about the letters, about Claire. He didn't believe her. Couldn't. Until she showed him the last letter she'd read aloud, the one Claire had finished for her, word for word, before collapsing into tears. It was his. Every line. And only 2 people in the world had ever known what was written inside that envelope. One of them was standing in front of him. The other had been missing for 43 years. And now, she was waiting. The moment he saw her, he stopped breathing. 43 years had passed, but it was her. The way she tilted her head when she smiled. The same eyes, softer now, maybe, but unmistakably hers. She sat in a chair by the window, the sunlight catching the silver in her hair. And when she looked up, he knew. She remembered him. James? His name left her lips like a question and a prayer. He walked to her slowly, like she might disappear again if he moved too fast. No cameras, no doctors, just the 2 of them, sitting inches apart, surrounded by machines that beeped like ticking clocks. She reached for his hand. Their fingers trembled as they touched. And for a long time, they said nothing. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "He told them I was insane." The story spilled out in pieces, like broken glass. The drugs, the forged documents, the private facility hidden under her father's name. He'd paid to keep her locked away, declared her unstable, dangerous. She'd tried to escape once. They punished her. After that, she stopped trying. James listened, barely breathing, his letter still clutched in his coat. The love that kept her sane, the only thing that reached her. But then Claire said something that chilled his blood. "He still pays the bills here, every month." James looked at the door, and suddenly, it didn't feel safe anymore. The nurse was gone. James turned to thank her, Megan, the one who started all of this, but the hallway was empty. No footsteps, no chatter, just that eerie hospital hum buzzing like something was coming. Claire gripped his hand tighter. "You have to go," she whispered. "If he finds you here." But James shook his head. He wasn't leaving. Not again. Not after 43 years of writing to a woman the world swore was dead. He reached into his coat and pulled out the very first letter, the one he wrote the night she disappeared. It was yellowed now, the edges soft with time. He placed it gently in her lap, and for the first time in decades, she smiled, really smiled. Then the door opened. Not slowly, not casually, with purpose. A man in a suit stepped inside, late 50s, sharp eyes, cold presence. The kind of man who looked like he'd never heard the word no in his life. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't have to. James knew that face from an old photo on Claire's piano, the same smile from the engagement party. Her father? "Mr. Holloway," the man said, voice smooth like oil. "I see you found our little patient." Claire's smile vanished, her hands pulled away, and James felt something slide into place. A memory, a rage, a vow. The man who stole her life wasn't finished. James stood up, slowly, deliberately. The air in the room felt heavier now, like it remembered everything that had been stolen. Claire's father smiled, calm as ever, hands folded behind his back. "She's very fragile," he said smoothly, not even looking at her. "You have no legal authority to be here. I suggest you leave before this becomes complicated." James didn't blink. He pulled a second letter from his coat, then a third, then a stack thick enough to crush bone. Years of love, grief, hope written in ink that never stopped flowing. He dropped them on the hospital tray with a hollow thud. "She's not fragile," James said. "She's a prisoner." The man's smile twitched. Claire tried to stand, but her legs buckled. James caught her, and in that second, in the way she leaned into him, without hesitation, the years disappeared. They were young again, unbroken, together. And that terrified her father more than anything. He lunged for the call button, but James was faster. He slammed his hand over it and leaned in, voice low. "I've recorded everything. The nurse has your records, and every word she just said, I've got it." Silence. Then Claire spoke. The first time her voice sounded like it belonged to her. "You kept me in a cage. You told them I was mad, but I remember everything now." Her father stepped back. Just an inch. Just enough. And that's when Megan appeared in the doorway, holding a phone, still recording, still rolling. He didn't say a word as they escorted him out. No shouting, no protests, just silence. The kind that comes when a man finally realizes his money can't hide the truth anymore. It wasn't just the letters. It was the billing records, the forged medical files, the falsified court orders that kept Claire trapped under a false name in a forgotten wing of a private hospital, all paid for in cash. All now in the hands of someone who cared. Megan filed the report that night. Claire was transferred the next morning. And James stayed by her side through it all. He read her every single letter, in order, week by week, tear by tear, as if time itself owed them those stolen years. She laughed again. She cried. And when he got to the final letter, the one he wrote the night before Megan called him, he didn't have to read it. Because this time, he handed it to her. And she opened it. She read it slowly, silently, her fingers brushing each word like a prayer. Then she looked at him, eyes glassy, voice shaking, and said, "Write me one more." He did, but he didn't tuck it into a shoebox. He placed it in her hand. And for the first time in 43 years, she wrote him back, "If this story hits you in the heart, share it. Someone out there is still waiting for a letter."